You want?
Well, let's just start at the beginning. I want to hear a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up? What made you interested in this profession of going into the force?
All right. So basically, I grew up in New York City. A lot of people didn't grow up in New York City, and I think that's one of the problems with policing. I think that the people being policed should be policed by people in their own neighborhoods or who understand their neighborhoods. I mean, there's some corruption if I'm the police officer and I live down the store and I'm coming to the store all the time, there's opportunity for corruption. So, but still I don't believe that suburbians should come into the city and bring their values into city values. I think it shows when it comes there. So I grew up in the city, and I did 28 years before I retired as a police officer.
That's very interesting. So you think a lot of people in NYPD are from out of town? Is that typical?
Well, the NYPD has it's more diverse now, and it has a lot more people from within the city. But it has a lot of suburban people as well, and things have changed, but the culture of a police department is a police culture. It's not a black or white issue. It's basically a police. It's a blue issue.
Yeah. Well, that kind of segues into you've always been, I think, an advocate for community policing. I think the PAL and everything to do with boxing is tremendous. I want to hear a little bit about your career, how long you were in the force, some highlights, or and your involvement with PAL.
Yeah. Well, 28 years. I was a cop for about 7 years, a sergeant for about 4 years, and a lieutenant for 17 years. So, and as far as community policing goes, I have no problem with actually policing. Like that's where I'm not a liberal, bleeding heart person. Like I have no problem locking people up. I don't have problem with enforcing smaller laws, like squeegees and stuff like that, and graffiti and low-level marijuana. I have no problem enforcing those type of laws. My problem came later on in the career when it seemed to go beyond that. And that was during Kelly and Bloomberg administration, where they went into the stop, question, frisk. And the stop, question, frisk is basically policing on suspicions that you might have committed a crime or you might be about to commit a crime. And that's nonsense. That's us overstepping our boundaries. When you come into you're pushing everybody to do stop, question, frisk, then what are we, thought police? So just understand that I had no problem, especially as a cop, as a sergeant, arresting people. I had no problem with if you're drinking in public, I have no problem giving you a summons. I have no problem fighting with you if you want to fight over nonsense and arresting you for that. That's not a problem. And I never took it personally. It's just a thing. And just to say for people who live in the city, some of the people I arrested, I ran into while I'm off duty. And I might have fought with them and everything like that, but they understand where I'm coming from, and I understand where they're coming from, So I think that's important, as opposed to being outside of the city and you come inside the city and I'm taming the savages, you have that mentality. And I'm not saying that's generally a racist mentality, but it's that police mentality and that city mentality, that inner city mentality, let me give you a quick example of that. You have these projects, right? They're called housing developments. They're PJs, they're projects, right? They have what's called a family day, and everybody comes out and they're doing a lot of drinking and they're barbecuing, but they don't have no place to go. And and if you don't get the police there, we have to be the barbecue police. And I've said this in several of my videos that you need the barbecue police, because in the hood, if you have these a bunch of parties, somebody's going to get up into a fight, somebody's going to get drunk, and somebody's going to get shot. So if you're saying that doesn't happen, then you're not from the city. You don't understand this. That in the hood, if you have 10 barbecues in a high crime area, you're going to get shootings. It's just, there's no ifs, ands about it. You're going to get that. People crash parties for whatever reason. People don't like each other, and It's nonsense. But that's what happens. But anyway, I had a kid from like the suburbs working with me on one of these, family days, and he goes like, I can't believe they're doing that. And I go, what are they doing? He goes, yeah, they're out here partying. I go, what? You never have a barbecue? And he goes, well, I don't do it over here. I go, because you don't live in an apartment building. If you lived in an apartment building, I go, where are you gonna go? And he goes, I go to the bar. I go, these are normal people. They're having a reunion. There's thousands. There's literally a couple thousand people. They can't go to a bar. I go, it's just like a block party or anything else, any other party, any other big party, and that's what it is. So, am I? I'm not being a liberal like. I'm just being a common sense guy, and I think that's what's lacking in police force is common sense. It's like these people are having a party, right? So you gotta let them have their party, and if they want to barbecue, there's you could pull out the police book and say, well, according to housing rules, you can't have an open flame near a building. Let them have their barbecue. They want to eat some barbecue, and they can say, well, technically they're outside, they're not drinking. They're not allowed to drink, but they're drinking. Let them drink. It's their party. And then they're acting up. It's disorderly conduct. Yeah, you're gonna have to break up some fights, but let them do it because it's a party. Now, when it gets a little crazy, and you have a feeling. If you're a cop, worth any weight at all, it starts feeling a little bit different. You start seeing people start packing, and they start getting into like groups, and they start looking at each other hard, and then it's about to go down. Right, so and I've been in these situations. You spread out your cops, you get them into these groups. It's like you have to join this crazy party. You have to join it. And one time we did it in Fort Greene, and it was funny because they had to park. The park was closed, the lights were off, and it was funny because I was talking to the commanding officer. I'm only a lieutenant, so I'm like in the middle. I was talking to the commanding officer. I said, you got to get lights over here. There's people in the dark, and I said, let's get everybody in there. Let's get our cops in there, because I've seen other commanding officers do this. So that was my give to him. So we went in there and we dispersed the cops inside there. And sure enough, two people pull out guns. They were about to shoot each other, but because there's so many cops, they couldn't really set themselves. They ended up dropping the guns. Everybody went running. We recovered 2 guns. Nobody got shot. Meanwhile, around the corner, there was some gang beef and somebody got shot. Right? So, yes, you need the police. you can't have a barbecue, and you can't say like, all right, we got the PJs, and they're gonna have a barbecue, and everything's okay. It's fun. Let them be. They're free. You can't, because you will get a shooting. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just what it is. And so and there's people outside of the city that don't understand that. But if you're in the city, you understand that people get shot over nothing, and that's why you need the police there. Now, what happened with Kelly and Bloomberg, was that we were over policed people. So now you have just people getting pushed to the limit. Now you have like the thought police. Oh, he might be committing something. And granted, you are going to get guns off the streets. You are going to stop crime, but you're going to build up a mountain of resentment. So it's always a trade-off. It's always a trade-off. Your freedom or your safety. Even in this COVID now, right? What are we talking about? Your freedom to live or your safety to die. What's happening? It's always the case. Whenever the government comes in and starts saying like they're going to help you be safe, you can be sure that they're going to take your freedom away. And that's what this is. That's what it is around the country, because the police have been over-policing. They have been over-policing on nonsense, And I believe there is some racism, but not as much as portrayed. All they have to do is keep putting up videos of white cops and black civilians, and they'll do that. I think there's enough white cops and black cops that do to other civilians, but that doesn't ring any bells. So that's not going to spread the hype. But even with that, my fear as a cop, is I look at those videos And I don't see it as the white police officer and the black person. I see it as an over-policing, overzealous police officer and a civilian. So I know it happens to white people, it happens to Spanish people, it happens to Asian people. It happens by everybody, and it happens by cops of all color. But still, I like the police reform because it stops the police from doing that too much to everybody, and then it will also stop them from doing that white to black. Because once you get that white to black, when you get that white cop and that black person getting killed, then our country has hundreds of years of history of abusing black people, slavery and everything else. Of course it's a hot topic. Of course that's a time bomb. Of course that's going to blow up. It's loaded with dynamite. So of course, that's going to blow it up. You have to stop that as a cop. And I blame the older generation, the fogey bastards that run the government and the police for not seeing that. How can you not see that this is going to come? Even 28 years ago with Rodney King, like cops took turns beating up on this black guy. He happened to be a black guy, and was there racism? I think there was some racism involved in it. So they beat up this guy, and then in court they found him not guilty. The city of Los Angeles burned for that. How can you, as somebody who's like the police commissioner, police chiefs, or whatever the heck you are in courts, how can you not see that it's a problem? The NFL lost millions of dollars because Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel, taking this at the NBA players wearing stuff like, oh, I can't breathe. It affects the country. It affects business,
Absolutely.
So how can you not see it? I could see it every day. You need to stop this, It's like, well, technically, and they give you that bull crap talk. They'll give you well, technically, it's only 1 in 800 million that happens. Well, you know what? We have 800 million contacts and this only happens once. Well, that once will make buildings burn. You have to stop that. It's like, oh, it's only an atom bomb. The radiation will kill people for years after that. We're not gonna recover from this. Not right away.
Well, I think you bring up some really good points there. And obviously, you as somebody who spent your career putting your life on the line, trying to fight crime, helping people, but also trying to have a nuanced perspective in this cop culture. Me as a citizen on the other side of that is kind of the flip side, where you have a lot of people coming in from the suburbs who don't understand what it's like to live in the hood, and they want to protest now, and I see people saying horrible things like all cops are pigs and all this stuff. And it does affect me because 90% of officers that I run into are just normal working class guys that are doing a very difficult job, and I feel like there's no nuance on either side of that. Everybody has phones, and it's just I feel like we can't descend into riots every time, but that's kind of what the culture is becoming. And I'm wondering, how you feel on some level that the PR of officers and the police force can be a little bit changed to combat that, because clearly not officers are also bad, and clearly there are people who who see problems and who want to address things in a logical, kind of cool-headed way. But right now, I feel like it's, at least on the citizen side of it, everybody has this feeling of like, oh, police are all bad. We don't need to abolish police. It makes no sense to me.
Okay, that's kind of that you touched on a few things. Well, one thing is that let's go into the late 1700s, right? Are all British bad? Mm-hmm. No, but taxation without representation. There was a war. The United States of America. They're united because they're united against Britain. Against England, against the King of England. So now you have this type of thing. So no move can happen without like some sort of revolution, and that's what it's going now. And it's is it extra? Is it over? Yeah, because you can't just talk about it. You think they would talk to the King of England and he would just give up? think about Vietnam in the late 60s, early 70s. You know, there was all this protest and this flower child. It was a whole movement. It was against Vietnam. And if you think about that, I don't know anything about Vietnam. I'm part Asian, but I don't know too much about Vietnam. All I know is that, like, you know, American families were losing their kids to a draft to fight somewhere like halfway around the world, and they were gonna die or come back maimed, you know, or at least messed up in the head, you know. So you have to fight that, you know. That think about the riots that happened after Martin Luther King got shot, and you look at it and you take a look at Martin Luther King, and he practiced peaceful protest, hundreds, you know, of years of slavery, and he's practicing peaceful protest, and he didn't get what he wanted, and he did get killed, you know, and this is why, like, there's got to be some sort of a revolution on it. So I understand that. As far as the cops go, I think most of the cops are fine. You know, most of the cops are fine, but it's that police culture. Now, who controls that culture, right? When you take a look at a bunch of bad kids, right, say from one family, you know, and then let's say they're in elementary school, right? So say, you know, they make it a staircase. In other words, you have an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and they're all bad, and they're tearing up the school. All you have to do is look at the parents. All you have to look at the parents are probably just bad parents in one way or the other, right? And if you take a look at the police culture, I'm saying it right now. The commissioners, the chiefs, the higher bosses, you know, this is what they teach their kids, you know. And again, it goes back to stop, question, and frisk, and it goes back to the definition of policing, right? If you're a police officer, you have to fight crime, right? You have to, all right, I'm gonna fight crime. Well, how are you gonna fight crime, right? You're gonna go to a high crime area, right? You go to a high crime area, right? All these people, you have more people that are committing crime, but only a few by percentage points. And then you have more people that are victims of crime. And you say, oh, I'm going to attack crime in that area. How do you do it? You know, and basically you're going to go after younger kids. You know, that's what you're going to kind of push for this thing. As you're doing that, what you're doing is, you know, like say I'm going to find somebody with drugs. Like, how many people do you think I'm going to have to bounce off? Say I'm doing searches, right? Let's just say, forget about the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of a search. But say I'm out there as a cop and say I'm searching people, right? Let's just say for whatever reason, right? To get a person with drugs, how many people do you think I would have to search? Just take a guess. Just in your head, what do you think? If I started searching people like on the block, random people.
5.
All right, so at least 5. I would think more like 20 or 30, right?
Okay.
But you say 5, right?
Yeah.
So either way, it's
everybody's got a joint in their pocket or something.
yeah. Well, maybe. The times have changed. But all right. Well, let's say. All right. So let's say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
So you say about 5, right? So now 4 people I searched, right? Don't have any drugs on them or nothing. And 1 person has a joint or some drugs, right? So I lock them up, right? So now let's go by numerics, right? So I do that to all the neighborhoods across the city, and I start doing that, right? Eventually, people are going to know not to carry stuff in their pocket, right? So now, because I hit this neighborhood hard, and I got a lot of numbers at first, I got a lot of arrests, or a lot of summonses, or a lot of drug recoveries, right? And maybe even gun recoveries and stuff like that. I get all these recoveries. Now the climate of the neighborhood changes. First of all these people, these 4 people, so say I got like 100 arrests, right? Let's just say 100 drug seizures. Then I got 400 people that got searched that now hate the police, right? And these 100 people, besides getting searched and arrested, besides them hating the police, I got 500 people that hate the police. Like they have an issue with the way they were searched, right? So that's say in my first month. In my next month, I'll have, people know not to carry now, right? So now I have to search 10 people, right? At the end of next month, I still get my 100, But now 900 people hate me for being searched. And these 100 people are like, F the police, I got to change. As that goes on, as that continues, right, you'll have to search like 100 people to get that one person. And that's what's happening. And then all these 999 people are going to be upset. And that's what's happening. It's just numbers. You cannot do this kind of caveman type policing, right? The drawback on that is like the opposite of the barbecue police, right? Like as the police pull back, the neighborhood's going to get shot up. There's going to be more people robbed. There's going to be more drug dealers making money. There's going to be, and that's important, I'll tell you about that in a second. There's going to be more burglaries. The quality of life is going to go down because people just think they could do whatever they want. And then some people might say, like, oh, drugs. Who cares? Who cares? It's just drugs. No, it's illegal. And this is what happens. Suppose I'm a drug dealer, right? Now I'm dealing drugs, let's just say this block. What is this now? It's my territory, right? How do I keep my territory when I'm conducting an illegal activity? How do I police my territory? Right? I don't want you coming on my block doing drugs. Yo, get your own territory. I don't want you coming over here. These are my customers. People, that drives crime. That will drive crime. Right? I might have sales to get some other people's customers. And now me and the other drug dealer, we got beef. Right? How does that get settled? In the hood. In the hood. It's not going to get settled by police. They're going to shoot each other. They're going to shoot each other. They're going to hurt each other. And then suppose somebody gets a good control and takes over like a store like this and say, all right, this is the best crack spot within a 5-block radius, right? You got the best crack spot. Well, guess what? All the cars, all the houses, everything's going to get like broken into because all the crackheads are going to come here and they're going to terrorize your neighborhood. So yeah, you want to hold back the police, right? But it's just like when England was there. Do you want, like England had a powerful navy. Like nobody can mess with us. Nobody can mess with us. We're under England. Now you have to make your own navy, right? So now what's going to happen is normal people, right? Normal people are going to have to take care of themselves. They're going to have to protect themselves, right? You say, okay, police, step back. As soon as the police step back, all the crime comes in. They're hand in hand. And that's always the case. How much freedom do you want in your life and how much safety do you want? They're opposite, right? They're the yin and yang or opposites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, you hate the police. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. All the people out there and, is it a little racist? Yeah, because if you're going to have, black and brown areas with high crime, you're going to have it. But don't worry about it. Like back in the 1800s, there were probably like Irish neighborhoods with high crime. And you had the problems. Italian neighborhoods, as different immigrants come in. I know back in the 90s when I first came on, Chinatown was getting shot up to, like they had this, speaking of Vietnam, they had I forgot what they called, the Born to Kings or the VFK. I don't know what, they were like Born to Kill or something, like crazy gangs. They'd shoot each other up. I remember the Chinese, like 2 Chinese gangs, like shooting at each other at a funeral of a Chinese gang. Were they targeted? Yeah. Was it a racist thing? It depends on where you are. Was it publicized? Not really. But yeah, they went after, I remember, because I worked in Chinatown as a transit cop when I first started in the 90s, early 90s. I remember coming upstairs and I remember police officers just taking like groups of Chinese kids, throwing them up against the wall and searching them. It looked like what happens in the hood, what used to happen. It doesn't happen that much anymore. It looked like it, and I was just like, oh wow. And like the cop was from the 5th Precinct. He was like, yeah, nah, these gangs are crazy. Meanwhile, they look like, me who doesn't know anything. I'm not from this part of the city. I didn't grow up in Chinatown. I grew up in Queens. I didn't grow up in Manhattan. They're looking at it like, yeah, these kids are dangerous. You know, to me they look like a bunch of math majors. You know, to be a racist. You know, to be I'm part Asian, I could say they look like math majors to me. What do you mean?
But, yeah, if that's your reality, that's what you see every day. It just kind of goes in your head. Now you'd be like, okay, so,
Right.
no, Chinese kids cause trouble, black kids cause trouble. If that's your life, I guess it kind of, you know, it's human bias.
It just, you know, it just, you don't know it. You don't know it. You know, like I'll give you another example of a sort of racism or stereotype. I was on a train, right? I'm on a train. I'm in the 90s, right? This is early 90s, right? I'm on a train, and we pull into a station, right? You know that you're about to get into trouble as a cop. And I did solo patrol too. I did solo patrol. Here I am. I'm a transit cop, and I hear all the train go, no. And I look, right, and we're in a predominantly black neighborhood, right, and you know, and so predominantly, like a lot of black people on the train line. I go, shit, you know, and I heard somebody even say to me like, officer, don't leave this train, you know. So I turn around, and there's a bunch of kids, and they're all like, they're predominantly black. It was a basketball team. It was like I had played a game in school. They're like, they were charged up. I don't know, they won or whatever, you know. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, they're kids, you know, like they're like, and they're amped up. So is that racial profiling? Is that stereo profiling? You have a bunch of amped up kids, whether they're white, black, or anything. You know, like if you're an adult, you don't want to be bothered with kids' nonsense. So they went over there, I looked out, so a lot of them went on the next car. So I let them all go in the next car. And I go in the next car. That was like the most fun train ride I ever had. These kids were like, they're like, officer, what are you doing? What are you gonna do? And I was like, I'm following you. I said, don't change cars because I have to change cars with you. I go, stay with me. And they go, why you gotta stay with us? We ain't doing nothing. I go, I know you ain't doing nothing, but people in the other cars scared of you. They scared of us? Why? I go, I don't know. You're all amped up. You're charged up. I go, what, you play ball? They were like, yeah, we was, you know, like whatever. But it was fun for me. That was like a fun ride. And then one of the kids like dropped something. And so one of the big authoritative kids on the team goes, yo, how you going to disrespect the officer like that? How you going to disrespect the officer? How you going to do that? He's being cool with us. And all of a sudden they're like, shoot him, officer. So that I got a whole basketball team. They go, shoot him. And I just pick up the thing and I just throw it at them, right? Like it was just a piece of paper, throw it at them. They go, that's right. And it was a fun ride. It was one of the most fun rides I had. You know, because there's no way, like they're all amped up, they're charged up. I don't want them doing something stupid. I don't want people calling police on them. Like if there's police, I got a radio. I'm like, all right, they're here, you know, like Central, I'm here. There's a bunch of kids, you know, and I understand that. But I also understand that they could get charged up and do something wrong. I could understand that they might run into another group of kids and then all of a sudden there's a problem. Like, why? Because they're kids. Kids do stuff like that. And I honestly, I don't think because it's a black or anything like that, you know. But meanwhile, the whole train had stereotyped these kids, you know. And so, as soon as I talked to them, I was like, oh, it's a basketball team. Like, what's up? You guys win? You know, like, am I a ball player? No. But I know that they want to talk about it. Like, yeah, you know, like they're all like crazy, they're hyped, they're young kids, you know. And will people feel threatened by him? Of course people feel threatened by him. You know, you're not a racist because you feel threatened by him, but you know, you're threatened by him. You know, but I'm hoping that, you know, if there was a little bit more realistic training, you know, if we had city people, and I honestly think a lot of sports people, you know, like becoming cops and not being pushed by the top to get numbers and to start this crap. You know, things would have a natural way of gelling together. You know?
Yeah.
You know, like
the top, at least in the police culture, top brass can be kind of abusive, and then that culture kind of trickles down.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So if you take a look at you take a look at what happens. All right. So again, I'm gonna keep with the freedom for safety thing, right? You look at, I came in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s was crack. Crack drove crime in the city. People were going nuts. People were making money for it. It's a new drug, and people, drug addicts didn't understand. They were craving it, and they were robbing their own family. They were robbing anything. They were selling themselves. You know, like they were doing that, and drug dealers were getting big. They were making tons of money. You know, so if you controlled an area, you know, now you're shooting with each other. You know, like that's how is, that's why I'm saying illegal enterprises, you know, are also controlled illegally. You know, that not just the selling of it, but you know, there's all kinds of stuff. Think about it. If I'm soft, like if I'm a big time drug dealer, and you're one of my minions, you know, selling crack to the crackheads, you know, and you come up short, right? And I don't do nothing about it. What are my other minions gonna do? You know, they're gonna short me too, because like, he don't really care. So now I gotta like beat your ass or do something bad to you, you know, to make sure that I don't do it, you know. And then what if you're another drug dealer trying to come up and you're trying to take over my territory? You know, can I say, oh, let's share, you know, we'll take shifts, or do you think there's gonna be beef?
Right.
You know, that's how it comes. So you have the 90s like that, right? Now, also in I think it was 88, 89, also Eddie Burns got killed. He was guarding this guy was going to testify against the drug dealers. He was guarding his house, you know, and they shot him in the head, which is unacceptable. So now the city, right? It's a wave. It was kind of like the opposite of George Floyd. Now, cop got killed. You have drug dealers taking over. You need some help. And then comes Giuliani, right? He came in on like, I will fight crime. That was his thing. It's like, right? So right away, you signed away. Boom, you signed away part of your rights, right? When 9/11 happened, 2001, right? People loved the police, right? Why? Because everybody's scared. They were scared. Right? Boom, signed away your rights. Right? That's what you did. So you take a look at that, right? So now we came in, and now they pushed for Bratton came in with Giuliani, and they pushed for broken windows. So broken windows were like, all right, if you stop the small little crimes, you'll stop the big crimes. You'll take an impact. So like the squeegee guys, you know, people squeegee, they started getting arrested. The low level crack guys, and you know, they started opening up more and more for police officers in uniform. And in hindsight, I disagree with that now. But back then it was fine. It was in uniform. They wanted you to write people, like the quality of life stuff, people drinking in public. Why? Because people drinking in public and hanging out, you know, it's bad. So now we're writing them summonses. So that got pushed and that rolled over. And now you're starting to, what happens is, say, like this happened to me a few times. I was a conditioned sergeant in the late 90s, early 2000, like, you know, just until the towers came down. Conditioned sergeant, a patrol sergeant. So now I'm in uniform most of the time, and we're going on the quality of life. But occasionally you would get something like a little nutty at it, like, you know, we get a kid like dealing drugs. We come over there. He's like, I don't want to go to jail. You know, I want a DAT. He wants a desk appearance ticket, so he goes to court at a later date, but he doesn't have to go to the bookings that night, right? Simple thing like that. Like, all right, what do you got? You got somebody else? Yeah, man, the guy who just supplied me. He's in this car. He's doing this, and this is where the drugs are. You know, we're getting that guy, right? And that guy has like a big load of crack on him. Like, all of a sudden you have a big felony arrest. This guy, you give a little DAT to, you let him go. You know, like, hey, you know, like people are giving each other up. And that's another thing. In the hood, they snitch. They all snitch, right? So if you have like general people watching this and they say, oh, you know, these people, if you notice that it's the same people in the streets doing the same thing again, that's because they're snitching every time they get caught and they're giving somebody else up. You know, that's how you stay on the street. So the whole, you know, Tekashi 6ix9ine and, you know, like that's a thing. Like, you know, I think Troy Ave and everything like that, they give people up. That's what they do in the hood. You know, just try to like, yo, you keep your mouth shut. Only the people who get arrested for the first time, who really don't know, they keep their mouth shut, and they unfortunately get a bad hit for it on something big. But they give each other up. So anyway, so now you have this broken windows theory. So now you get this, like, I remember a couple times we stopped gambling in the street, you know, they're playing CeeLo, they got money coming, boom, we grab all of them, we're getting them for CeeLo, but all of a sudden somebody has a gun on them. So it's a kid with a gun, that could be a problem, so we probably averted a crime, right? So that's on our level. On the top level, they're pushing for more of that, because as they do that, now think about it, you have a gun on you, right? You're about to do a robbery. Well, you can't go smoke a joint because somebody might stop you, right? You can't go have a beer. You can't be acting up. You can't be hanging out. Like, so if you're going to do a robbery, you got to go do your robbery and come back, you know, with your gun. You can't hang out, right? So now if you're hanging out, you probably don't have a gun on you. So more and more those numbers started dropping, and crime just dropped. That's the trickle down effect of enforcement, you know, because you're not going to do big crimes unless you're out there to do it. So these type of things helped. You know, it's less crimes of opportunity, you know, and the policing got better. Then comes in after 2001, comes in Bloomberg and Kelly, right? And what they do is they want to push for numbers, right? So now if you know that you come outside with a beer and the cops are going to jump you, you're not going to come outside with the beer anymore. You're just not going to do it, right? Yeah, and then, you know, with the weed, that's a big thing. And like you said, like who's got a joint in their pocket? If that's a big deal and they're searching you for that, you're not going to do it. You're only going to do it like indoors and stuff like that. So they started pushing for search warrants now. So now they're breaking into people's houses and they're pushing for search warrants, right? And then the next thing is they go right into stop, question, frisk. So now you say, okay, this is a high crime area, and now this is not like this guy walking down the street and this guy like driving in his car. Now they're all possible crime committers. They might have committed a crime. They might be committing a crime. They might be, you know, riding dirty. They might have committed a crime and maybe they got a warrant or something. Stop everybody. So that ruined the city. That ruined the city. You know, and that I want to say that I didn't take part in that. Like that's when like my police career. I was a lieutenant by that time. I was a lieutenant, and I was doing some where we're getting guns off the street and stuff like that. I was with undercover officers and detectives and like, you know, doing casework, which is different than straight policing. I said, all right, I'm leaving that. And I went into the PAL for a little while, which I found out was political, but you know, I work with kids and comp programs. Then I went to patrol, back to patrol. I said, I'm not going to deal with the politics. And then for the last 8 years of my career is I worked schools. So basically, I kind of work by myself, but I covered like a whole borough, well, half a borough. It's a patrol borough, Brooklyn North. I covered, and my thing was mostly like, we're not locking kids up, you know, like you know, they're kids. We can't lock them up. So in each facet of my police career, I did exactly what I was supposed to do. You know, like as a cop, yeah, I made arrests. You know, I did these things. As a sergeant, a lot of arrests. Very, very, very aggressive with the whole broken windows theory. You know, as a lieutenant, I went into, you know, like we went after like gun dealers and stuff like that, illegal guns and firearms. It's good, but then I cut it. I was just like, this is too much. I'm not into that. So now I went into the to the community relationship, the PAL. But I found out it's all bull crap. It was politics.
In what way?
In politics. It's like Kelly was still the commissioner. They were still into the powers that be, the commissioner, the chief. They were the commanding officers of the precinct. They were still into fighting crime, pushing up numbers, pushing up stop, question, frisk. They were not into like, oh, we're gonna do this community stuff. And even the cops who say they're gonna do community stuff, they're all liars. You know, like the big bosses, they're liars. They're not. They just don't know how to do it. They don't understand how to do it.
Do you think on some level it hurts your career to have that level of integrity on some level? Be like, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would have got promoted to like a detective lieutenant, which is a nice pay raise if I stayed in a police thing. So now I went to this community affairs thing. So I interviewed with the police commissioner to get this thing, you know, to get this PL. But then I said, you know what, this is all fake. This is fake. You know, like when I push, this is not what we're pushing, and I can't get any backup. And it's just, you know, I'm like in, it was like a weird world. I was like in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So I left there. So over there, I also might have gotten promoted. You know, and you know, so as I left there, you know, it shot my level again. And then I went to patrol, which is considered the lowest of the low. I liked it better. When I went to patrol, I was in Bushwick, and again, you know, I did it as a uniformed patrol lieutenant, and I still handled a lot of prostitution cases and a lot of graffiti cases, because in Bushwick it's graffiti like crazy. And what I did was I locked up a lot of kids, right? So that was my specialty. So with the kids, it was they did graffiti, and I would find out about it and get them. And what I did is I set up like a one-stop shop. So the thing was, they had to be 16 or under, like under 16, or when they committed a crime. You have like a statute of limitations, so they could be up to 17. But you know, I really didn't like locking up adults, unless they were fully grown people and they got caught doing graffiti. You know, there's no problem. But in that kid area, in that teenage area, I did. Like if you were 19 and I caught you with graffiti, you know, and there's investigative techniques to it, and I caught you doing graffiti, I'm pretty much not going to lock you up. You know, like that out of because, you know, like now you got a record.
Yeah,
it's not going to help them, right? But if you're a kid, you go to juvenile court, right? You don't get a record. That gets expunged when you're 18 years old, and then, you know, like, and then so I would, and plus I had plenty of these kids, so I would lock these kids up, you know, and then I get the court, you know, the juvenile court, to assign them back to me, so that they can do their they would do community service, right? But they did it with me.
Okay.
So what I did is I had to clean up like
tremendous.
I had to clean up like the toilets in the prison toilets, which were nasty. And I had them scrubbing away, and I had them pulling weeds, and, you know, cleaning up the garbage like around the precinct. Sometimes I would take them out and we would like paint over the graffiti, you know, like stuff like that. So it was fun, and I would talk to these kids, you know, like a lot of them, they just needed like a little bit of attention. So they did pretty well. And it was good. And yeah, like, and I just was very big on that. I didn't want to ruin their lives. So from patrol, I went into the borough, and I became the school lieutenant. Now it became my big priority, not so much because I'm better than anybody else, or I'm a liberal heart bleeding, you know, like, oh, say the kids. No, it's just common sense. It's just like, all right, we're in school. Like when I went to high school, I had fights. You know, I was like a terrorist. You know, like in high school, I was just like, I fight everybody. You know, like, so like these kids are fighting. Yeah, they're kids. You know, I don't care if they're 18. We're going to try not to lock them up. So what I did, many a time is like I'd go in and fight. I go to the precinct and fight with the commanding officers, fight with the other lieutenants, fight with the sergeant, and I'd get these kids out of jail. You know, because I like you can't do it. Give them a summons, do something. And that was my thing. On the other hand, I could throw on the crime hat, you know, like the crime fighting hat, when it was something nasty, like a robbery. Because you don't want kids robbing kids. Yeah. You don't want kids bullying other kids. Like sometimes you have to be the police officer. There was a time in Bushwick where Bushwick, Williamsburg, where they were getting these fights, and it was one of these schools, and they made it a special school. It was like a dumping ground. Like whoever the worst kids were would like end up in school. So they come from all over the place. So they bring their friends and they get into these crazy fights. So like one girl, I never forget it. She brought like bleach and razor blades. I couldn't imagine throwing bleach on somebody, but she sure enough did. She and razor blade, and this girl got cut in the eye. I heard she lost her eye or lost her sight in that eye. And I had to put on the other hat, and we had to lock that girl up, and I had to make sure that the case, you know, like the officer was like some cop who had no idea what he was doing, but he knew to grab, right? He knew who did what, and he grabbed onto it, and, you know, there was another girl there, and she had to be the witness, and, you know, I had to put that case together so that she would get tried in court. Like, you can't go, you know, like blind somebody and not get caught by the police. So, and yeah, she's a kid, but her I don't care about like that. Like you've actually maimed somebody, and then also the message would get out. You know that like, oh, she did this, we didn't that, nothing happened to her. That would be like a green light for the rest to come in, and that's what's happening right now. It's a green light for everybody to do whatever the F you want. Absolutely. It's a green light, and that's wrong. That's wrong, and I believe that's a political agenda. That's a completely political agenda. I don't know why they would just
going up now.
Yeah.
I would love to get your perspective on this, and it kind of has to do with what you were saying before. This is something I feel very strongly about. And I'm not somebody who's really political either, per se. I'm kind of in the middle. But with this, I incredibly disagree with the left on the topic of the minimum wage. And the reason I do is I think when it comes to poverty and crime, it shouldn't necessarily fall on the burden of officers like yourself to get these kids off the street.
Thank you.
That burden should be on businesses owners like myself.
Thank you.
And I would love to get these kids apprenticeships and get them in here and teach them something and get them a career started. But with minimum wage and workers' comp and payroll tax and unemployment insurance, it becomes untenable. I can barely, I've gone months without paying myself.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. So again, the same thing as when the government gets involved in your shit. That's what it is. When the government gets involved in your personal stuff, that's when the problem is. Yeah. Like really, I don't care too much about drugs. And when I say drugs, it's like I don't care about like the individual users. Like I believe the police are there to get big time drug dealers, not so much small time, but big time drug dealers. Some drug dealers. I really don't care about the people, because that's your problem. If you have a drug problem, that's your problem. So if we catch you breaking into somebody's car because you're a drug addict, crackhead, we get you for breaking the car. If you have a little bit of possession on you, it's there. But I don't think we should try to stop you from doing drugs. Yeah. That's your problem, right? Same thing with the minimum wage. Like, it's supply and demand. We're a capitalistic society, right? Like, whatever you can afford, if somebody's willing to take that, then take it. It'll benefit him. I worked in high school and, when I was still, even in college, I was working like $3 an hour. I didn't care like that. I was learning something and I was working my way up. I had a little pocket money. I don't care that you don't pay me that much. I wasn't worth it. I agree with you. And that's what it is with the government. Even with this COVID thing, like they're like oh, you're healthy, but you might be asymptomatic and you might hurt somebody else. Well, you know what? If you fall in that range of like where you could get hurt because you had diabetes or you got these underlying issues, hey, you better protect yourself. You better quarantine yourself. Like about all the other healthy people, let them work because they got to make a living. Yeah. How can you stop them? When the government gets involved in your personal stuff, they will ruin you. Absolutely. They will ruin you. Absolutely. And that's what it is. And now they're getting involved in the police. And all they have to do, it's easy. It's not as hard as you think. Like you could change policing. All the top has to do is set the parameters. Mm-hmm. Set the parameters. Like I see all these TikTok videos and these social media videos. Like I look at them and they horrify me. Like you have a cop stopping somebody in say a car stop, right? They're stopping a car. Right? They have them on some sort of violation, say it's an illegal left turn, stop sign, whatever, right? And they're pulling them out the car. That horrifies me. Why do you need to pull them out the car? Right. You're saying that they are possibly guilty of having a summons, right? Well then give them that summons and leave them alone, right? They're asking if they have drugs in the car. Why? Why are they asking if they have drugs in the car? Why is the government is he, right, if he's driving drunk or if he's driving and he's a harm to others, if he's driving on drugs and he's not driving right and he's a harm to others, yes, you have to protect others and then you could ask these questions, right? But I don't even care. I don't even care if he's transporting drugs. I don't care if he's got kilos in the car. What is it your business to interfere and search and seize him? Why? Why? You know who should be doing that? People who are detectives and running a case on him. And they know, hey, here's Charlie. That's Charlie and Fred. You know what they're going to do? They're transporting the drugs. How? I've been tracking them. I have a record of their phone calls. I know that they gave it off to old Maxim over here. And he's the drug dealer over here. I have that information. And then you don't just like, oh, I discovered these drugs. You do a case on them and you put them away for a long time. You know, like I'm not a liberal. I don't think that they should go away, but that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. You don't do these stupid car stops. Oh, he looks like somebody. Let me tell you something. You put a few black guys together, they're gonna look somewhat alike because they're black. You put some Chinese guys together, they're gonna look alike because they're Chinese. You put some white guys together, I can't tell them apart. It takes, especially if you got the same hairstyle and same mannerisms, right? You know, you should never, ever try to picture somebody ever and say, oh, we got them. No, it should be an investigation. We're looking for this guy. You know, we're looking for Johnny Jones. Johnny Jones lives in this neighborhood. He goes to this drug spot. His girlfriend lives in that neighborhood. We know he drives this car. Then, you know, if he's got warrants and stuff, he's wanted, you do an investigation, you track him down, and you get him. Not like, this guy looks like somebody. Like, what are you insane? Like, this guy looks like somebody? What kind? That's not a reason to detain anybody. Ever. I don't like this stuff. And that horrifies me, these videos that police are actually doing this and calling it police work. Yeah. Anyway, I don't like the cops with authority, right? With having, you know, authority issues. I don't like them being overbearing on their authority. You know, like when you have nothing, right? So say you have a problem with me. I'm an officer, right? So I come by the store all the time. You don't like me. I summons your customers. You know, I come in and you tell me to go F myself. You know, that's your right. That's your right. That's not disorderly conduct. That's your freedom of speech. You know, say you take pictures of me or something like that. You video me. That's your right. That's your right. I don't care about that. You know, I don't have issues with that. You know, I don't have issues with that. You know, when do I have issues? Like, all right, so now suppose you're now let's take it up a step further. Now you're handing out flyers, and technically you're not supposed to hand out flyers. You know, now I have something, but how far do I want to go with it? You know, do I want to tell you to move? Like, how far do I want to go with it? Like, you have to stop that. You know, I will not get into a full-blown fight with you where I'm trying to throw you on the ground. And that's like Eric Garner, right? Eric Garner. Cigarettes. He was selling cigarettes. Why was that cop there? Because he was selling cigarettes. I'll tell you why. Because the office of the chief of department had too many 311 calls and said to the commanding officer, you got to do something about that. So he sent one of his most aggressive cops who went over there and fought with this 400-pound guy over cigarettes. Like, who else would do that? Why would a cop like even bother with that? Do you think I would ever care about you dealing cigarettes? You know, like, I don't.
Maybe he wouldn't even have done that in the first place. If you get a job that pays $8,000 an hour, learn some skills, 2 years from now he's making $20 an hour. And that's my whole problem. Is it doesn't actually help people. What it does is it makes it illegal for anybody with the productivity less than $15 an hour to work, which is every single kid in the hood.
Right.
Nobody doesn't want to pay him $15 an hour, but I'll pay a kid $5 an hour.
Sure.
Just clean up, and maybe he'll learn to act professional. He'll learn how a business works, and then maybe he'll pick up this skill, that skill. One day a guy.
I agree with you 1,000%. I agree with you 1,000%. You know, I mean, some people are never going to get off the streets because some people just don't have any work ethic. But if you have some work ethic, you can set yourself apart, and you got to start small. Like right now, like I'm working after I retired. I'm doing an internship, at a company, and my friend knows I'm not getting paid, nor do I expect to get paid. And sometimes my new boss like yells at me like, "Oh, I wanted this done, I wanted that done." And I'm thinking like, this move, he ain't even pay me, like, but that would be stupid on my part. Like sometimes I just laugh, But I was like, yeah, I mean, like he's pushing me as a worker, but what's that for? It's for my benefit because I want to learn the business he's in.
Right.
So I want to learn it.
Right.
So of course, I know that I'm getting more out of it than he is. I'm a flip flop. I'm nobody to him. I know that like he's helping me, even though he's not paying me. But yes, you're 100% right. And that's the government getting into your business.
Absolutely. And we talk so much now about police accountability, but I think we need more accountability over all of these government quote unquote businesses. And that's how I see it. They're government businesses, except they don't run like every other business because they don't have to be accountable necessarily. They can give you a horrible product and you have no say over it. So education is a good example, even in the most horrific poor public schools where we spend $20,000 per year per kid. I've hired a bunch of those kids. They get here, they're 18 years old, they can barely read, they can barely do math. But I'm just thinking, I'm like this, okay, so let's say apprenticeships, $5 an hour is not enough to live on. Let these kids get out of school when they're sophomore. Get an apprenticeship, this job pays $5 an hour, the government will subsidize you with $20,000 we would have wasted on school to subsidize your living. And there you go. And by the time you're 18, 20, you got 4 years of work experience. But right now, the way the economy works, and I'm like you, on the flip side of it, I'm not surprised that all these kids are out there protesting and rioting because they're angry. Because they have no job opportunities. They waste all their time. They're forced to waste their time in these schools. They graduate, and then because nobody will hire them, the only thing they can do to try and even attempt a career is to go to school, load up on student debt, and if that doesn't work out, you've just messed up your whole life before it's even started.
Yeah, that's where Occupy Wall Street started. Or Occupy Wall Street is that these people, and school is a business too. These schools are a farce. Like even the colleges, because they're making people pay for these degrees, and then they can't get a job. And that's the whole premise of Occupy Wall Street. Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of problems. Those are all social problems that you're talking about. What I can't really comment on it. I agree with you. I can't comment on it because I'm talking about a police thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all of these things are problems. I do have a good program though that I run with my partner Pat Russo, and we run a cops and kids boxing, which is great because we've taken some of these kids, and some of them just have no discipline. So in boxing, they get disciplined. They have to run. They have to work out. Otherwise, you can get your butt kicked. If you get your butt kicked, we don't care. You want to box?
That's tremendous,
Right. So they get that, and then what we do is we give $50 for any of the kids that come in with 90 averages or better, on their report card. So it's a little hustle to them, and it's also something to compete on. You know what I mean? Because they might not be the best boxer, but they might be in the 70s and 80s. And if they study a little more, all of a sudden like, oh, I'm smarter than you, And then all of a sudden like, yeah, I got $50, So we try to do stuff like that. And, so we do cops and kids boxing. It's free for cops, free for kids. We have 3 gyms. And, I expect to be YouTubing them when the gyms reopen up. I'm going to be working with kids, and I'm going to be YouTubing it, and I'm going to be demanding from them. But because I believe
that's amazing. I would love to be involved in that project too. Just let me know.
Okay, well, so I'm going to need somebody to film.
Yeah, because this is the whole thing. This is the whole kind of a side business now that I'm working on. It's my kind of new pet project.
No, it's good, absolutely. So hey, listen, I'm going to have like in this thing, hopefully for China pretty soon. But we got that. But yeah, it's there's a lot of different things. The upper echelon of the police department. This is very important. The upper echelon of the police department thinks that it's their responsibility, thinks that it's their responsibility to fight crime, right? And it is, and it isn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's not their responsibility to prevent crime. You prevent crime by having the cops out there. People are gonna do crime. You have to know that any society we want, somebody's trying to get over, somebody's messed up. It's not perfect. There's gonna be crime committed. Let the crimes happen, investigate it, and then you have levels of investigation. You have people that are very good at doing narcotics investigations. You have people that are good at tracking down people with warrants. You have people like myself. I was a robbery sergeant for a while, for a year. That was good. Tracking down robbers. I was very good at that. You have certain people, homicide detectives that track down homicides. So you have all these resources, right? Now, and this is what I was saying before. The officer in uniform should not be out there proactively trying to reduce crime. Just address the situations that come up. If you have a crazy party that's out of control with a bunch of noise complaints, then you call a boss and you get a bunch of cops over there and you handle it without getting into a riot. Are you going to lose control of the neighborhood? Yeah, you're going to lose control of the neighborhood. Are there going to be more homicides and more shootings and more killings? Absolutely. Absolutely. But just like, what was the guy saying? Like, give me liberty or give me death?
Yeah.
That's what these neighborhoods are saying right now. Then give them liberty. Yeah. Eventually what's going to happen is, there's going to be somebody killed that they really, really are upset at, and then they're going to give up a little bit of their freedom, to get the police back in a little bit, and that's always going to happen. Just it's always going to go one way and the other way, right? And it's going to be, just like 9/11 happened. People were coming up to us and saying thank you. That's like, what are you thanking us for? Oh, for just doing your job. Why? Because they were scared. So when people start getting really scared again, they'll ask the police to take a bigger step, and the police can't help themselves. The big fogey, stogie, dusty bastards that they are will always be happy as a government entity to come in and teach you, what to do. Like, you can't, like the over policing is ridiculous. You have people getting summonses or walking dogs without leashes or walking into a park, and just nonsense. Those things are not police issues. They're not police matters. They had. I'll give you one quick story. They had 311 calls. So 311 calls, by its nature, are not police emergencies, right? So they had some lady who was like, some ladies are crazy, like older ladies in the PJs. So she just kept making complaints about her neighbors. So so they're having one of these CommStat meetings with all the police chiefs, and they're saying, like, hey, you can't move this person, and she lived there for like 40 years. She doesn't want to move out of her apartment. Like, obviously, it's not a police matter. There's nothing you could do. She's crazy. She's going to call the police all the time. She's going to make complaints. This is something that you got to live with. You can't solve it. And then the police were trying to solve everything. They're not there to solve everything. They're there to cover a certain amount of crime, and that's it. That's what they do. And they push it. On another point, there's certain things that you can do with the police. Like, say you have tourism, right? Manhattan is tourism, right? You have tourism in Manhattan. Yeah, you can make it, you could push for the quality of life issues in Manhattan, And people will understand, even people from the hood will understand that. I could smoke a joint out here in Brooklyn on my steps and police are not gonna mess with me. But if I come out on 42nd Street, they're gonna stop me, they might, and even they will understand that, because that's money. And you need money coming into the city. You need the businesses going. They're going to be hiring people from everywhere. You need that circulation of money. So everybody will understand, even though there'll be some civil rights groups or whatever protesting, but for the pretty much understand, listen, hey, don't go into Midtown Manhattan or the Village, smoking weed. These guys, well, in the village, they might, it's a different environment. But don't go into like, the tourism centers and act a fool, because the police will stop you. And that makes sense. That makes sense. But you don't take that mentality and bring it to Brownsville, Brooklyn, or you don't bring it to, Edgecombe in the Bronx. You don't do that. You leave that there. You leave it for where it's supposed to be. It's understood.
Well, and I hope that this is, and us doing this video, that's where it could be productive for people to see some nuance. Because I think people on the left who feel like we need police reform, and people on the right who feel like we need to relax on some of these labor laws, they're both right. They got a good point. But both these kind of people have to have a meeting of the minds and kind of come together. And right now the environment is all about right or wrong. Like that side of
it's all hard left and hard right. There's never any common sense anymore. There's no common sense.
I think it's a big problem. It's a huge problem actually, because we as a country is coming to a point where we can't seem to make a decision on anything either way. Everything is deadlocked all the time, and I'm a little bit fearful of that. Most Americans today, their number one problem in a poll said that it's the other political party.
What I understand is that, even the anatomy of what a riot is right now. It's like, like right now, like if you have a protest, you don't even have like it's not even black people in the Black Lives Matter thing. It's these.
They're mostly all white people.
They're white from, I don't know where they're from. They come with skateboards and they break everything.
Yeah.
They break everything. And it's terrible because
they marched across here, and I was standing out here the whole time because I was terrified. I don't want to break into, when we were open, my restaurant.
Right. Absolutely. And it's crazy. And it's just like, I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what their agenda is, but they're looking to break things up, And it's a shame.
I don't really believe in any, or I don't really support anything that puts destruction as a priority. So some of these statues, as an example, they say we don't like these Confederate statues, let's tear them down. I think that's fine. But if you're going to do that, then you should also be responsible for replacing it. Put something else in there that's meaningful. Leave it looking beautiful. But right now, it's like, okay, we don't like this statue, let's tear it down. The next day, the whole area looks like shit. It used to be a nice park. Now it's spray painted. There's debris everywhere. I'm like, this is not better.
Yeah, it really is. What happened is, unfortunately, what happens is, so you got to know how protests are. Like as a police officer, I can tell you what a protest is. All right. So protests is a good protest, or I'm not saying good. I'm just saying good in numbers, right? So you have a good amount of people coming in, right? Yeah. So anytime you have a good amount of people coming into a protest, you're gonna have other parties. So you're gonna have like these crazy skateboard kids, like that are breaking everything up. So they merge themselves into the protest, right? You have some people that are just concerned citizens. They're like older or whatever, and they kind of come into it. Then you have like civil rights type things, and you have different people start coming into it, right? And then you got straight from the hood, you got some like thieves and some bandits coming into this rough. So now now your protest was like this before. So you have like this many people that are actually in the protest, but that for the protest, but you have this many people coming in with their own agendas. You have a big pool coming in with their own agendas. And that's when it gets crazy. That's how it happens. But that's everywhere. Anytime you have like a large group coming in of anything, it's always going to mix. It's always going to mix. So there's going to be other agendas, and they're gonna do things. So like I honestly don't think there's too many Black Lives Matter protesters that are like truly black and truly breaking things. I think it's this other group, and I don't even know where they're from. There might be separate groups, but they're radical groups coming in. They're not even black, and they're breaking things up, and some of these kids, some of these black and brown kids or neighborhood kids, you know, so definitely white kids too are definitely doing it. They're like, now these kids break it up. Now these kids are like, hey, it's open, take something. And, you know, being kids, they'll take it, which is not a great showing on their character. You know, like what would be good is if they didn't take nothing, and now these kids would, you know, like these radicals will get exposed for what they're doing. But that's not the case, you know, like.
Well, maybe, I mean, there and a lot of them are my generation, and I think I can kind of talk about that a little bit because a lot of these kids are educated, but don't really know how to do anything. Have a lot of student loans.
Oh, that's the whole Occupy Wall Street crowd,
Yeah,
right.
They grow up in an atheistic way, so they don't have any sort of real. They're very nihilistic. They're kind of loserly. And they're in their mid-20s and they feel behind. I mean, they don't have a career and they don't really have any prospects. And they're like, you know what, fuck it, let's just burn it all down. Or I feel like there's some of that sentiment going on, you know, because they...
Maybe.
If you're staring down at $40,000 in loans, you're like, I want this thing to burn down. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You got nothing going on anyway, right? Yeah, it's a little weird, and I could understand the frustration. That I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
That I'm not too sure of. Like I can't get from a kid taking like social science, becoming a master's in social science, and then having trouble getting a job to the government. I kind of put that out all on like. Right. I kind of put all that on. Our education system misleading people into saying that they'll get a job. Doing something like this, I think that's a problem.
But what's funny is none of these kids ever protest the schools. You know,
what's that?
Like, what's funny is none of these kids ever protest the schools. I'm not sure you go to our school.
That's kind of what Occupy Wall Street was, you know.
Yeah,
but
that's true. Yeah, that's also true.
But yeah, they should have took it to schools and stuff like that. You know, it's a little scary.
Well, I mean, how do you feel about this new administration? Because DeBalsio is very unpopular, I think. And definitely with police, right?
Well, listen, with the police, like, you kind of, the reason why DeBalsio became mayor is because Bloomberg was mayor for three, and Bloomberg was all to the right.
Yeah.
So the pendulum swings. It's going to come back. So instead of getting somebody to the left, they got somebody to the far left to balance it out, which is DeBalsio, right? So DeBalsio stole him and his wife stole like $1 billion.
Like $1 billion.
And nobody's saying nothing.
Nobody's saying nothing about it.
It's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
I can't believe it.
I don't know what backdoor deals are going on there. So I couldn't say. But so now DeBalsio is you know, he hates the police. But in some respects he's right, because there needs to be police reform. He just doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't have any idea how to do it, you know. And then also, I also believe that it's better to keep a little bit of chaos and a little bit of like anger at the police, because, you know, here's that $1 billion. Like, well, don't look at me. He's choking somebody. You know, look at that. You know. So I kind of feel like there's some of that going on. You know, there's a little misdirection. It's called sleight of hand, like smoke and mirrors. Magician. How do you get away with stealing $1 billion? Well, I got. Don't worry about my $1 billion. These protests. So there's billions of dollars going out the window right now. Look over there. You know, oh, not me. You know. So there's some of that. What I hate about DeBalsio and Cuomo is that they're not letting people work. You know, they're not letting people work. You know, the police have to be reined back a little bit. But that's all, like, you can set that. Like, somebody who knows about policing can just set that straight. You know, like there's just, it's just a few things that have to go on. Like,
they're not letting people work, but they're still making us pay. You know, I mean, I got a $6,000 penalty from the Labor Department the other day.
For what?
For canceling workers' comp insurance back in March, because they shut us down. We operated for 1 month in June. I didn't re-up on it because, well, I thought we were going to be closed anyway.
That's all bull crap. You gotta go bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly.
On them. Yeah,
I mean, something, but
yeah.
like, and then I got another feed today. They said I'm being 100% honest with you. I don't even know what this is referring to. But they say, oh, you have some government penalty. You didn't pay $3,900 in collections. I had to pay the DOH almost $7,000 last year. They're coming in. I had a basement leak that I couldn't fix. Because every time they show up, they take $2,000 out of my pocket. I'm like, maybe I could fix this thing if you stop taking the money from me. You know? Wow. And to be honest with you, right now, I'm squared up with all my vendors. I don't owe anybody any money except the government. And in a lot of ways, they've made it impossible for me to run this business, and I've learned a lot from that. Like, this is why when I walk down Utica and Schenectady, there's all these empty storefronts. Because we can't do business in the city because the government makes it impossible.
No, they do. As a matter of fact, I was very interested. As you know, I was interested in like trying to start a coffee shop. Yeah. Obviously, now with this COVID, I wouldn't even think about it. But I remember talking to a guy who was he was a manager of a restaurant, and I go, what do you think about opening up something? And he goes, nah, you can't. He goes, the inspectors come in. And they always hit you for something. He goes, you can't ever.
It's extortion.
Yeah.
They come and they extort me.
He goes, you cannot run a business in New York with all this thing. So again, here you are with the government, and what is it under? It's under the guise of your safety, right? Because it's food. So there might be contamination, there might be this, there might be that, right? And they're going to give you fines for it, so you fix it. But meanwhile, they're taking a chunk of your money. So again, it's it's insane, and I believe all these protests and stuff are smoke and mirrors, because what the government is doing is that they're crushing the businesses, and the businesses, they're gonna they're killing. They're putting a lot of people out of business.
Even before COVID, there was a 30% vacancy rate in commercial real estate.
I didn't know that.
Going into it, 30% of all commercial ground floor spaces in New York was vacant. Who knows what it's going to be now?
Right.
And
that's why they're trying to blame it on COVID.
Hey, you know what? And that's what exactly, and for the community to develop. If you don't have businesses here, that's what brings jobs, culture, everything.
Everything. Absolutely.
I mean, even tax revenue to do all this stuff comes from. We're actually generating the capital in some way.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the government, they've never washed one this year, cooked one this year. So.
Yeah, the government is it's a bunch of they're a bunch of thieves. There's no other way to say it. And they just like you saw it when they had the tax relief plan, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like what was rolled into that bill, money goes here, money goes there, money goes here. It's just like they're taking it. Yeah,
some of them pay themselves.
Yeah, they yeah. Somebody was saying like they're gonna forgive like student loans up to a certain point, and I go, what does that have to do with people dying from COVID?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with it? Like what does that have to do with people not being able to work? And they don't care. You could see Cuomo is an arrogant guy, and you could see he doesn't care about small businesses at all. He sent out like his goons, and they weren't NYPD. He sent out his goons to give summonses to business owners for liquor license and stuff like that. He does not care. And it's like right now it's proven that whether you shut down or not, the COVID is going to spread the same way, whether you shut down or not. There's no cases in New York now. It's all fake. It's all fake. It's all fake numbers. It's all fake news, and it's all a conspiracy. I don't know what the conspiracy is, but we're screwed. We're screwed.
Well, I could talk to you for hours. Maybe we could do another one of these, but I want to wrap it up because it's been over an hour.
Okay.
I got 4% battery. I just want to hear one last thing from you. Going from being police to now retired and kind of entering normal citizenship life. Do you find it, a burden off your back to some degree? I mean, you're walking down the street. That's not my problem anymore. And
no, I don't feel. Well, first of all, with the COVID, I can't even live normal. So that doesn't even. That doesn't even come into play.
Yeah.
But what happens is, it's just like I always kind of done what I'm going to do. I do what I'm responsible. It almost has no bearing on me at all. A little bit more relaxed, yes, because I don't have to punch a clock, that type of stuff. But as far as the policing, not too much, because remember, for the last 8 years of my career, 8-9 years of my career, I was kind of pushing away from the police, from the policing, and I was going into a new policing where, we're trying to support kids and stuff like that. So, not a big difference to me. It would be a big difference had I gone from like in the beginning of a career when I was doing like a lot of police work and a lot of enforcement work, to switch off of that. But like even the enforcement work, that was always a job. It wasn't like I never felt like anything personal about it. Like oh you're a drug dealer. Oh like I just like whatever. Like this is what you do. Like you did this. We're gonna do this. That's it. You got away with this. That's fine. Like you got away with that. I mean, like I don't care. I don't care. It's not my business to care. Just do a job and do whatever it takes.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for your service all these years, and I hope to stay in touch and maybe we'll do something else in the future.
Absolutely. Not a problem. Okay. Cool.